Brothers and sisters and children here at the mosque and those that are watching online, Assalamu alaikum. We are in the blessed month of Ramadan, and so sticking with tradition, my khutbah today will be about Ramadan. In this speech, I want to address some of the things I have seen and heard from Muslims about this month. And so the title of my speech is Ramadan is more than just fasting. Now we all know, or should know, what fasting is, as it is one of the pillars of Islam and one of the core things that all Muslims should do. Even in 2014, I still hear non-Muslims asking us what the month of Ramadan is. And almost always I hear Muslims describe it as a time when Muslims abstain from food and drink during the daylight hours. They say things like, we can only eat and drink from before sunrise and after sunset. But generally, that seems as far as we go in explaining what Ramadan means. And I've been genuinely surprised by how many young or younger Muslims think that simply abstaining from food and drink is following the word of Allah during this blessed month. I've personally witnessed Muslims breaking the law during this month on a daily basis, from littering to spitting in public places, to speeding when they're driving, to things like rude language being used online on social media and posting inappropriate photos online. As Muslims, we shouldn't be doing any of these things anyway, but we should be especially aware of our behaviour towards others and our demeanour during this month. There are two aspects which we must be aware of during this month. One is the obvious one, the physical trial that we are asked to endure by Allah in not consuming food or drink during the day. That is so that we can understand how a poor and needy person feels all the time. It makes all Muslims, regardless of wealth or prosperity or education, equal, even if it's for a short number of hours every day. It in part helps us understand how the desperate and poor live their lives every day. But Allah makes sure that we do not suffer during this time. As He says in chapter 2, verse 185, Allah desires ease for you and He desires not hardship for you. So by fasting, we are given merely a glimpse, a tiny, tiny peek into the hardship and suffering that millions of people around the world have to deal with on a daily basis. And from that experience, we are meant to make sure that we give in charity to help the most needy and poor people. Because when you understand the hardships people go through yourself, we have no excuse not to give as much as we possibly can. Now, the second part, and this is something that I see a lot of Muslims forget or ignore, is the behavioral aspect. This month is meant to be one where we improve ourselves as people. And this doesn't mean that we are expected to make massive, numerous changes all in one go, but manageable changes every year so that year after year we become better human beings. If you are a smoker and you stop only for Ramadan and then go right back to smoking again, then you're not doing things properly. You're not following the guidance given by Allah for this blessed month. Ramadan is the opportunity given to you by Allah to stop a bad habit forever. Whether that be something like smoking, or things like indulging in gossip, or trying to control your anger. These are all things which people can improve, and Allah has given us a defined period within which we can do that. There's no excuse of, I'm too busy to deal with that at the moment, or I'll start that next week, or you make a promise like it's a New Year's resolution that you don't go through with. We know the dates of Ramadan, and we know what we must do during that time. And if you ignore the changes you should be making, then Allah has given us a warning. He says in chapter 5, verse 95, Allah pardons what happened in the past. Allah pardons what happened in the past. And whoever returns to it, Allah will punish him. And Allah is mighty, Lord of retribution. It cannot get any clearer than that. We are to make changes for the better in our behaviour and our lifestyles, and never go back to those bad habits. Making changes is hard. It can be very hard. And Allah understands this. And that is why from puberty until the day we die, we are given a chance every single year to become better and better people before eventually we meet the Divine Being. I also see more and more people on places like Facebook and Twitter getting worked up over the little things when it comes to this blessed month of Ramadan, and arguing and asking questions like, I'm travelling away today and I'm not sure whether that means I should fast or not. They're looking for guidance from social media and websites because they think that there's some rules that are set in stone which they need to adhere to, whilst at the same time ignoring the bigger issues about self-improvement that I've just described. My opinion is that the answers to these types of questions are very, very simple. It's a personal decision. If you feel that traveling on a certain day means you cannot fast that day, then don't fast. Remember, Allah has said to us that He does not want fasting to be a hardship for us. So you make up that day later in the year, or you feed a poor person through a charitable donation, like giving money to a food bank, for example. That guidance is already there for us. This information has already been given to us by Allah. We don't need to be asking social media and websites whether they're following the right path or not on these matters. We need to move beyond picking to bits all the tiny things and arguing online whether if travelling 48 miles means we shouldn't fast on that day, or about moon sightings, etc., and make sure that on a larger scale we are making effective efforts to change ourselves for the better during this month. I've also noticed a new trend over the last few years during Ramadan, one that a close friend of mine recently described as the Christmasization of Ramadan. I have been receiving by email more and more invites to iftari parties, as they're described, which have been heavily advertised and promoted weeks in advance, and are aimed at, seem to be aimed at attracting upwardly mobile, affluent Muslims to attending the events. I haven't gone to any of these parties, as they're described, but I asked my friend who went to one of these this week. I asked him how it went, and I was saddened by what he described. He essentially told me that it was nothing more than a networking event masquerading as an evening of religious contemplation and prayer. The so-called contemplation and prayer were sidelined or relegated to a small corner room out of the way, whilst most people took the opportunity to network. In a month which is devoted to the abstinence of food, people seem to spend their days preparing it and their evenings feasting on it, while showing everybody how well they can organise a party, whilst others are using it to increase their business profiles and bank balances. That is about as paradoxical as you can get. And it's not just Muslims who are commercialising Ramadan. The corporate world are using the Christmas sell techniques to attract Muslim money. Only this week, I think it was on the 6th or 7th of July, DKNY launched their Ramadan clothes collection. And it was described by one newspaper as DKNY making its Middle Eastern debut with halal couture. As the economic power of Muslims has hugely increased over the years, so has the commercialisation of our blessed month. The rot of commercialisation is starting to set in now that corporate America and the big brands see us as a valuable target. And so we must open our eyes and take a step back and each individually follow the model of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, as set out by Allah in the Holy Quran. Only then will we be able to stop Ramadan becoming the Muslim Christmas. Ramadan is meant to be a time of quiet contemplation, a time of prayer, praying to your Lord, and a time of self-improvement. When we give in charity and look to help the people who need it most. And we need to get back to these basics if we are to truly benefit from this time.